Big friendly hellos. Welcome to the first governance call of November 7th. Let's take a look at the agenda. For here, we're going to dive really deep into two events that should really be on your radar. The first is Labweek. It's taking place next week in Istanbul. Filecoin Plus is going to have about 2.5 hours of updates, also going to be broadcast. So we'll talk to you a little bit about how to register for the event, how to track the event on your calendar, and really what to expect from that time frame. Then notaries on the call. We're going to talk a lot about the Allocator update. Galen's going to join us on the call, kind of talk about high level, what's the purpose of this, how does it change between V4 and V5, and like a real sneak peek of what those allocators will look like as far as applications and scoring and next steps. But again, during the lab week next week, we're going to spend 2.5 hours to really dive into any questions you have, walk you through that whole process. So this is just meant to be a warning, just kind of an introduction to that whole setup as it goes. Quick check-in on this. So as the world changes time zones, it's always a little bit confusing as we shift. Right now, we're kicking off the first governance call at 0800 Pacific, 1600 UTC. The next call will take place at 1800 Pacific, 02 UTC. So I'll put these into the Google calendars. I know sometimes it can get a little bit wonky between UTC back and forth, but if you follow that calendar link, it makes it really easy to kind of keep up no matter what time zone you might be looking at, because Google will automatically update. So just put that in chat. But if you're here, you're probably good to go already. So that's just a duplicate as we slide forward. On the agenda today, like always, we'll make an issue in GitHub. If there's anything you want to see on that agenda, feel free to leave a comment. I see that in Slack, we had a couple questions come through really late last night, early this morning. We'll try our best to work those in. But again, if there's a topic that you want to see brought onto this agenda, love it. Love to have it. The best way is just to come to this issue, leave a comment. Hey, Kev, can we please talk about XYZ LDN or what happened here? And that way we can bake time into the schedule. Otherwise, what we do is we always save time at the end of the call for community issues. And just like always, we'll try to touch on those. But again, just a friendly reminder, if there's anything you want to see on the agenda, this is the great way to do it. If you need help, backup, you have a whole governance team here to make sure that you're supported. If you're not sure who to reach out to, as always, feel free to ping me and I can help route you to the right POC to get you where you're going. So notaries, big hello. I'm going to post the link to the SLA. Thanks for coming. With this SLA, as always, we use this to track kind of participation, but more importantly, we ask questions like, where does the time go? And then a lot of our tooling is meant to be improving this process, so it's not taking you so long as you're going through and doing it. So notaries on the call, thank you for filling this out. If you're not a notary, again, I encourage you to fill this out because we look at this for like past participation, especially when you guys go over the Allocator application with Galen. Some of the fields ask, how long have you been in the program? What's been your contribution to the ecosystem? If you fill this out and say, yeah, I come to governance calls, I listen to what's kind of transpiring behind the scenes, make my voice heard, this is a really easy way to throw a metric behind that. So even if you're not a notary, highly encourage you just to sign in, friendly hellos, and then we'll make sure to track that and give you credit for any time it may come up in the future. All right, updates. So coming up next week is what's called Lab Week. It's taking place in Istanbul, and it's going to be a pretty big event. So essentially what this is going to be is a culmination of all sorts of talks, both by Protocol Labs and Filecoin Foundation. You'll find the link right here in chat. And when you go to that link, you'll see the sign up for the Phil Plus talk. This talk is going to be taking place, and what's going to happen on this talk, we're going to talk a lot about it on the call, is like what are some of the changes that are going to be coming to the Filecoin ecosystem for Phil Plus in 2024. So really, really encourage you to participate. We'll obviously be putting these links on YouTube and Slack and GitHub. But if you'd like to attend, we're working on the live option. So that way, if you have questions, you can ask them real time while we have a panel of Galen, Deep, RG, KZ, Simon, Phil. So a real big brain trust all in one place taking place. So that link is right there in chat. It's taking place next week in Lisbon. And if you're keen to see the schedule, essentially what the schedule will show you is what talks are coming up. So I'll put that schedule list right here in chat, and you can see over the course of 4 days, a lot of great talks. So with this, if there was anything on your mind besides Phil Plus, great way to dial in and see what talks are taking place. I can't speak for how many of these sessions will be broadcast live versus just recorded. So I think as we look at this situation that's evolving, we'll have more updates to come. But I can tell you for sure with the Phil Plus, even if we can't get that a live broadcast, I'll be sure to make sure that those questions get posted online The videos are shared so you can glean all that content that comes from the talk. So again, next Thursday, Phil Plus talk taking place at the Labweek in Istanbul. Now, with that, we have Galen on the line. Galen, thanks for coming. I'd like to turn the floor over to you for an updates on what's going on with the allocator.
Yeah, thank you. So currently, I just checked, and we have 118 registrants for next week for the Filecoin Plus Day set of events. So that's pretty exciting. I think it'll be a lot of really good content, like you were saying, recorded and live. Looking forward to seeing some of you there. Carrie, can you click forward one slide? Awesome. So we posted this um, kind of a broad issue topic 2 weeks ago, sort of talking about some of the changes that we want to make in the system. Um, I see a couple familiar faces on here that have been with Filecoin Plus since the very first and second applications to be notaries. And so you may remember way back in the day, the only way that it worked is someone would apply to be a notary. They would get their own set of data cap. They would use the tooling, they would use GitHub, and they would give out that data cap directly to clients that applied to them. It was not a multi-sig. It was their set of rules. They said, here's how I will do diligence. Here's how I will do my bookkeeping. And they were solely responsible for that distribution. In some ways, we are moving back to parts of that system where what we're trying to do is get more of these teams and organizations that have their own mechanisms for how they are going to perform diligence, their own sets of clients that they want to work with, or their own sets of tooling. And they will be the distributors of their own pool of data cap. So the LDN process, as we know it right now, where it has this multi-sig with something like 80 signers on it, where the kind of governance team and the working group, myself and Deep and Kara and Phil and Simon and all those people, right now, we really facilitate the functioning of that. We set up the tooling for it. We work with the external contractors, but the signers, the people that are doing the diligence, are these external notaries, right? But the rules, not all of those signers agree on what all of the rules are. We run into conflicts. There are bottlenecks at different points in time. And we've spun out some different POCs, like the eFill process. That was a different pathway that had its own set of rules, its own set of signers. So a way to think about this is we want other teams to spin out more of these other pathways and propose these other ways to get data cap. So we talked about this in this meta pathway design, where we are expecting that a lot of these are going to be manual diligence. The enterprise pathway is still manual. The large data set pathway right now is still manual. There's still some human in the loop. A set of clients apply, or a person applies on behalf of a client. A set of the people on this pathway are doing the diligence, reviewing that application, sending the messages on chain, reviewing how they're using the data cap, sending more data cap or not. There's still a manual process to it. I think that most of the pathways in the next application cycle are still going to look like this. We do have one automated allocator that currently exists, and we would love to see more. And so that last bullet here is on automated allocators. That's where you are taking some kind of automation, either at the very front end of the diligence or in an ongoing way for how much data cap you give out or how you continue to give it out. We've seen some different proposals using reputation scoring, where you would rank someone on a set of kind of quantitative and qualitative metrics, take some kind of third party KYC, and it would be an automated first allocation. And then if they are using it according to a set of thresholds, they would continue to get allocations. And that would all be programmatically automated. We would love to see more of those and test out more of those pathways. And then there's this middle pathway. We've heard a couple of teams kind of pitch this. I know that one team, I met with them at the Dev Summit in Singapore. Really excited to see that. That's the data swap team. I don't know if they're on the call, but they're working towards that, where it would be a market-based approach, where a client may show up and kind of submit an amount of data into kind of a clearinghouse. This team is using various algorithms to check the metadata. There would be a bid associated with that. Some amount of money would be staked. And then SPs would be able to see these and bid on them as well. And that using that market approach, you would have these different bidding economic structures that would prevent Sybils. It would not be economically favorable for you to play all sides of that equation because you would just be getting downward bid pressure on yourself. And again, then how can we create different automation and different tooling? So I'm really excited to see what people in the community are able to put together with these. As we've said, we're going to be doing a lot of this announcement work next week at Labweek in those recorded calls. So, Carrie, could you click forward one more slide, please? Thank you. A big part of this is going to be the application. If you have been a notary in the past, you have had to apply. This is like that part of it is not new. What's going to be new is it's going to flow a little bit differently, and it's going to be a much bigger set of questions because what we are trying to ascertain here is what is your pathway? The whole program scope stays the same. It's a who is applicable to get data cap? A real client with real data doing distributed deal making. That's the piece that we care about. You, the team or the individual, will be deciding what kind of market do you fit into? And it would be totally reasonable for a team to say, well, we are only going to work with this type of subset of clients that fit this profile. Maybe it's one particular region or one particular business sector. That would still be a real client. It would still be real data. How will you check that? And then how will it be distributed? Because again, the whole point of this system is that you don't have a closed loop where one party or owner operator or entity is disproportionately getting this data cap to kind of game the system to get block rewards that are this kind of subsidy for the whole network. So how are you distributing this data to other owner operators of SPs, to other regions, and what tooling are you building to support the whole community? What tooling are you leaning on? So the FilPlus working group is still going to be making tooling available. And this tooling will still be open source for these different teams to plug into, to choose to use if they want. Various front ends, various back ends through GitHub, various dashboards. Those things are still going to exist. So in this application, we'll be asking lots of those kinds of questions to get a sense for how are you going to structure your notary allocator pathway? Who will you work with? How will you give out the data cap? That'll be coming online in GitHub. We'll be posting it in all kinds of places. It'll be linking to an Airtable form. That's just going to help us capture this data in a more consistent and kind of parsable, scorable language, which really makes it easier on the back end for us to score these faster. We'll be posting those applications publicly so people will see other people's responses. They'll see the scores. And as we have here, there's going to be questions about what is this unique contribution? What is the value add? What is the set of clients or the type of data or the type of SPs that you will be specifically supporting? Carrie, one more slide, please. Thank you. And so there will also be a rubric. This is also not new. We have used rubric systems in the past. We have a set of scores. We have a set of range of options for answers on those questions. To get your score, those will also be public. The rubric will be public. In the past, we've had a lot more time to post these and go through more kind of cycles with the existing community to revise the application and revise the rubric. There's a lot of things in flight right now. We're going to be posting this application and rubric next week at Labweek. We will still be taking feedback on those. If people find, large gaps or sections that don't make sense, we may still be making edits to those, but they won't be sort of sweeping edits to how things are scored. Again, the rubric will be live. You will see the rubric. People will see each other's scores. Those will be posted back onto their GitHub issues. And then the plan is by Q1, and we will be finished scoring At the end of Q1, we hope to ratify and connect these new teams to their set of data cap. This is going to be a shift for the program. This is going to lead to some new changes. There's going to potentially be some amount of friction. I think that from the two dev summits in Singapore and Iceland, working with the people that were there, hearing Juan talk about these different pathways, I think that there's a lot of potential for us to diversify the different ways that clients are getting to data cap. The ways that storage providers are handling their own biz dev and applying on behalf of clients, the ways that teams are building tooling to do programmatic deal distribution, teams like, Estuary and Lighthouse, where they are making kind of software-based client models that will spread the data around. So I'm very excited to see how these different allocators are going to come together, how people are going to score on them. And the goal with the transparency of this is we want people to see what is expected of them, apply, and we don't expect that everyone is going to nail it right away the first time. The governance team is going to be working with these different teams that apply, helping them explain the rubric, explain the application, talk to them about their questions. It should be a collaborative process back and forth. So I don't want everyone to think, I get one chance to submit this application, and if I miss something or if I don't have this answer, that I'm wrong. We want it to be a back and forth dialogue. So I'm going to pause there. This was sort of just a teaser of what is to come. Hopefully this also gets you excited about Labweek next week. I think, Kay, there's one more slide that we have in here. Thank you. So register, join us, come to Istanbul if you can. We'd love to see you there in person. Join us virtually. If not, I know the time zone is not perfect for everyone. Hopefully it will work in some capacity. And again, these will be recorded. It will be an ongoing process. So pausing there to see if there are any questions in the chat or any hands from the participants about this teaser. I won't drill into any specifics because we're saving that for later. So if it's a really specific question, I may just have to redirect you to next week. All right. Super. Some familiar names on here. I really look forward to seeing what kinds of applications we're going to get from these teams that are, currently on this call. I think thinking back to what worked in the very first and second election cycle, where you had your own set of data cap, what was effective, what was, useful in that world, what has worked in the LDN cycle or the EFIL cycle, and then how can we take both of those and move into a new system? Yes, Eric.
Hi, guys. So I'm quite confused about the allocator for the V5. So is the allocator we call is existing notary, or it's kind of a new allocator which distributes the data cap to the clients or to the communities? I'm not sure about the exactly mean about the allocator.
So we are using this term allocator just to sort of help denote that this is somewhat new. It is still going to be a notary. So as far as the technical details on chain, what is going to happen is, let's say I myself apply to do a auto notary where if you come to Labweek and register for all the events and come to all the events, you will get an NFT, and then you take that NFT certificate that proves you were in attendance and you go to a website and you show that NFT to this website. And the website says, great, thanks for coming. Here's 32 GB of data cap. And that's all that my auto notary does. I would apply. I would say, this is what it's going to do. This is how it's going to perform diligence. This is the tool. This is the website it's going to use. And we may use it again for other events, to get people to come to events. Maybe not the best application, but use that as an example. I would submit a address on chain that would be the notary allocator address. The governance team would look at this proposal. They would say, sure, we're going to give you 500 terabytes of data cap because we don't think you are going to have that many people come to your pathway. Here's 500 terabytes. I would have that at a notary address. I could set that as a multi-sig. I could have my tooling using access to that multi-sig address, and it would hand out data cap in 32 gig segments as people used my website. So it is still a notary on chain. Nothing changes. There's no FIP change here. It's not a technical change. It's still a notary address on the verified registry notary table. That notary address has an amount of data cap. Each team that is applying to say, we are going to build a notary allocator pathway. Some teams may apply for multiple allocators. They may say, we are going to build one that works with enterprise clients and encrypted data, and we are going to build one that works with open data and scientific data exclusively. But those are separate pathways, but they're built by the same team. So we have two different addresses. We're going to use the same website, but two different application forms. So that team, that organization, would have two notary addresses, two allocation pathways. But as far as sort of the on-chain mechanism, that stays the same. We're using this new name, Allocator, just to help differentiate how the program is evolving into trying to have more of those pathways. If you go to the data cap stats website, our main sort of dashboard, right in the kind of third section on the page, it has data cap flow. And it's this Sankey chart that says, out of all the data cap created, how is it flowing through the system? How is it going to the LDN notaries, LDN V0, V1? How is it going to direct allocations? How much is going to eFill? We want more of those splits. So we say, okay, out of all the data cap created, how much went to automated notaries? How much went to market-based notaries? How much went to these manual diligence notaries? And then split it out more and more from there so that we can see, we're getting a lot of really interesting action in one of these pathways. Maybe we need more teams to build in that pathway, or we're not getting any traction. Maybe we need more marketing or tooling or to invest in these other areas. So what we're trying to do is spread out from just having this one multi-sig, the LDN multi-sig, that is trying to serve, most of the data cap flow into one set of rules with this big group of notaries, with this one limited set of tooling. We want to move away from that model. So that's part of where the new name comes from. Does that help clarify?
Thank you. Very clear. 100% understand. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, if there are no more questions. Amanda, yes.
Hi, I have a questions regards to that new questions for the application, because from the reading those questions, like how you be differentiator to another application or contribution, it does sound like the cover letters for me. Is that means if you write or you present your application is better than another's, you will get a kind of a privilege to, or you can get to like a more, I don't know, how does that gonna help you to apply for the data cap?
So it's the application form. Carrie, can you go back a few slides? I think it's back like 2 slides, maybe. Other way. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Carrie. So this application form is going to be, I think it's right now it's something like 60 questions. It's quite a bit. And what we are trying to do, similar to why we ask a bunch of questions on the LDN pathway, we ask a bunch of questions of our clients because we want to understand, does this client know what they're signing up for? How much information can we get qualitatively up front to gain some amount of trust before we, the LDN process, gives them some amount of power in data cap? And then how can we take their answers on these qualitative questions up front and then review them based on-chain behavior downstream and say, you told us you were going to do this kind of behavior, but then you showed us this other thing, and then we can make these decisions. Moving up one level from that, the Notary Allocator application is trying to do the same thing. We want to communicate, this is, you are applying to get your own amount of data cap, but you need to know who are you going to work with, what type of data you're going to work with, how are you going to verify those things, what is your expectation for distribution, and again, how will you verify that? Then what are you going to use to handle disputes? What are you going to use to handle changes to your system when you need to make updates or when you need to make, new sets of rules? You set a rule that said we are going to require, distribution across 3 regions, but actually we want to make it more strict. We're now going to require distribution across 4. What happens when you, the team, want to change the rules of your pathway? So there's a lot of questions in here to get an understanding of how your organization is going to run this Notary Allocator. How are you going to create your own version of the eFil program or the large data set program or some other pathway to data cap? And yes, we will be scoring those in isolation, looking just at the application, but also in aggregate. If we get 50 applications for people saying, we will make an auto notary that uses GitHub, you sign in with GitHub, and we will give you data cap. If we get 50 applications that are all the same, hopefully they didn't just exactly copy paste everyone's, but then it becomes a question. Well, what is your reputation in the system? Are you an existing notary? What tooling do you already have built? What other contribution are you making? Are you working with a specific set of SPs? Why should maybe we want to just pick all 50 and approve all 50 of those allocators. But maybe we say, actually, some of these look like they're just duplicates. I don't think that this team is actually going to build this. Let's try and work with them some more on their application and find out, is this just a copy of someone else's work, or should we give them, an amount of trust? So we will be scoring the answers to these in order to determine, do we, the governance team, have confidence in this organization's ability to build a pathway to data cap? Do we think that they have the tooling ready to go? Do we think that they will be responsive when, there's a set of tooling updates that need to happen, or there's a new entire network update that needs to happen and it changes some of the code, or there's going to be an outage? Do we feel like we will be able to reach this team and they'll be responsive to those things? So there's going to be a lot of questions as we kind of build these additional implementation pathways. I don't know if that answered your question, Amanda. Happy to clarify more.
Oh yeah, sure. I'm sure there's for the next couple of weeks is gonna be more information come out regards to this pathway. But thanks for I'm okay for now. Thank you.
Sure. There was a question in the chat about, can an allocator profit from this new model or still volunteer? The answer is yes, they can profit. There will be questions about monetization, fees, staking, collateral, and other structures. The idea here is, in a market-based allocator especially, if you are building an entire set of tools that is going to be a clearinghouse of data where you will need to receive, parse, hold, and manage that data, receive bids from SPs, and then transfer that data to the winning bids, there is an amount of cost. And it is reasonable to have some kind of fee structure in that market-based system. Perhaps your fee structure is a percentage of those bids. Perhaps it is a flat fee for every data size transaction. We ask questions that say, what is your expected fee structure? And you can tell us. If it seems unreasonable or predatory or unfair in some capacity, we may try to work with you and understand it. The more specific it is, the better. If you say, we are going to charge every applicant 500 fill in order to submit an application, that seems a little high just to get an application. Sorry, excuse me. But it would be reasonable for someone to say, we're going to work with enterprise clients. We don't want to waste our time doing diligence on people submitting bad applications that are just copy paste or bots. So we're going to weed out some of those by requiring a couple of fill when you apply. And we will take that money to help pay to like review these applications. That seems reasonable. Also, if you are submitting these applications on your own, on behalf of your own clients that you're doing the BD on, then you would just be paying your own bill. So that could be a way to say, we're going to do this to have a little bit of a buffer to protect our pathway from someone just trying to make our SLA look bad by submitting a ton of bad applications. Excuse me. But we are also expecting that some of these pathways may say, we're going to use a staking model, and we will have our SPs that we are going to work with stake, or we are going to have our clients stake. And at a certain point in time, if they are not in compliance, according to a set of rules that are public and disputable, then we will slash them. Maybe that staking is slashed and distributed to a certain part. Maybe that stake was held by the SPs. The SPs needed to stake an amount to participate. And if the SPs are not in compliance, that stake is slashed and some of it goes back to clients and some of it goes to the allocator. We are expecting that teams will propose a model that works for them in how they're monetizing it. Because it is reasonable to say we are building some way to get to data cap, some verification service. I'm expecting to see some people apply as data preparers that are taking the data, sharding it, preparing it, and distributing it in a programmatic way. Some of those programs would say we are going to be selling this prepared data to SPs at a certain price point per TIB. And the SPs will be paying us for that. That is transparent. That's above board. That is reasonable. And that allocator is still saying, we are not the SP. Here's how we prove that we're not the SP. We're not just the client. Here's how we prove that. We are doing the data sourcing because we're doing the BD. We're doing the data prep because we're using that's our value add. And we're doing the data distribution. And that's how we spread it around to people. And as a result, we charge our clients this much and we charge our SPs this much. We sit in the middle of a two-sided marketplace providing a service. There can be fees associated with that. So Faye, I don't know if that answers your question as well, but we'll talk more about all of these things.
Thank you.
Great. The big thing with like all of it is how much transparency can we have? What is the value add to the entire network? And kind of how do we have more of these pathways where we can test different things and iterate and say, what's working? How do we feed, more clients into the right size fit? And how do we spread out kind of the ways that people are getting to data cap and how that data cap is flowing? So that was a ton of time. Sorry, K-Ray. I know we have a few other things to get through. I will be on the call for a little bit longer if there's some other questions in the chat.
Thanks, Galen. And Amanda, Faye, thanks for those questions. We're going to cover lots more, as Galen said, on that topic. So appreciate those to kick off. There are two proposals. I'll kind of introduce the first, and I'll turn it over to Phil to talk about it. So right now, as you know, you can get data cap through like an application on the Glyph, or you can do the LDN process or enterprise pathways. What we're looking at, as Galen mentioned with this allocator model, is how do we design those pathways to be effective and working properly? So I'm going to post in chat. It's issue 974. This has been open since August. Lots of feedback about how the timeframes work, what's going to go on as far as next steps. This is going to get closed out. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone had this on their radar. and was kind of given input while it was still open before it moves forward on Labweek. And I'll turn it over to Phil to kind of introduce how these steps work on the threshold. So Phil, thanks for joining.
Hey guys, so this is a follow-up to the AC bot initial proposal. We did some simulations on how the AC bot would affect the current Fill Plus program with the LDN and how it'll affect the different clients. Because these thresholds, if clients do not pass them, the plan is for data cap issuance to be intervened for those clients. So that could mean pausing data cap or maybe suggesting to remove data cap. We did many analysis, a lot of analysis. It is in this proposal, and then we have proposed certain thresholds for the parameters of the AC bot. If you have any objections, please put comments in this proposal or ping me. Or if you're in support, also put your comments there. And yeah, so that's a quick one. Let me know if there is anything you have any thoughts or comments about this. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Phil. In Slack, right before the call kicked off, we had a question come up about, hey, I'm seeing some activity with the recent LDNs and message that were closed. Simon's not on the call, but in case that impacts you, I don't recognize the name. I've tagged him into that issue and hopefully we get an answer. I'm not sure which LDNs this were, so it's really helpful if you link it in the thread. Looks like that's starting to kick off, so maybe by the night call, we'll have some more information that we could push back on that and give you more updates as it goes. With that, we're going to kind of turn the floor over. If there's anything else on mind, floor is yours. Anything you want to answer?
So for other bot bugs, do we discuss it here or do I report to Simon?
We could do both. If you want to flag it here, we can discuss it, and then I'll be sure to kind of link Simon in for whatever you may see. What's going on?
It's just the bot seems not detecting the allocations because last night I had an LDN that were proposed and approved, but it immediately requested another round. Seems the bot is thinking the remaining DC is still 0, lagging behind.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just flagged it with Simon. If you have the link for the issue that you're facing, if you put it here in chat, I'll make sure to directly ping Simon in a DM so that way he can look at that one as well as any others that might be coming up.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate that flag a lot. Well, pending any questions, I think the last update that we have is please check the schedule. I apologize. Sometimes the time change really wreaks havoc in these. So it should be good to go, knock on wood. The next call that we have coming up tonight takes place at 1800 Pacific time, 0200 UTC. On that second call, we'll be having the translator joining us. So a lot of the information we went through today will really slow down. When we have the translator, it's nice because we'll speak for a minute or two, then the translator will go through a minute or two. It's a lot easier for questions on specific topics. And I know that during next week, we'll have a lot of Q&A sessions to go with it. So Faye, I got that link you sent. Thank you so much. I'll put that on Simon's radar so we can see what's going on. I'll pause and see if anybody has any other topics or issues you'd like to flag for the call. All right. Well, as always, thank you so much for your time, participation in the program. If you need anything else at all, please let us know. Otherwise, the next governance call will be kicking off 1800 Pacific, 02 UTC, and the link to that call is right here in the slide deck. Thank you so much, everyone. All right. Well, hello. Welcome to the second Notary Governance call of November 7th. On the agenda, 3 big parts. We're going to start out with Labweek, what to expect next week, how to register. Then we're going to do a deep dive about the allocator process that's coming, and Galen's going to walk us through what those changes look like and some of the next steps to be aware of. For proposals, nothing new, but a review of the 2 that have been open on the last 3 calls. The first is what's going on with the meta updates, and the second is talking about thresholds for the AC. So with that, just as a friendly reminder, this call has a 2-week cadence. Next week will be the lab week that's taking place. The next call is coming up on November 14th. If you don't see this in your calendar, here's the link right here in chat. Easy to follow along. Sometimes the time change do make that difficult. Thanks for your patience. If there's any topics you want on these calls, feel free to add an issue in GitHub. I'll pause. And yeah, right now we're just waiting for the translator. So it'll be just a brief pause here for a moment.
Sorry, I was not able to unmute it. That's why I was actually talking, but nobody is hearing me. Anyways, let me go back. 我们今天的议程呢是准备要讨论一下在伊斯坦堡的实验室里面的一些这个update 一个状况。另外呢，就是在我们的新的那个提议案的部分呢，倒是没有什么新的大的一些意见但是我们会讨论几项提议案。然后再来呢，我们的最后一部分就是大家进入一个最后一个讨论。那另外就是在我们这个会议的部分呢，我们有一些时间上就是大家看一下我们的这个治理会议就是像我们这 Governance Call 的一些时间表已经列在这个第二页上，下一页上面OK.
Wonderful. So with that, there is a friendly governance team to back you up. We all span a certain aspect of the program. If there's help you need, feel free to reach out. If you're not sure who to ping, I can always route you to the rest of the POC.
我们这个非常友善的这个治理团队呢，随时都是准备支援你所以你有任何的问题都可以提出来跟我们的治理团队来联络。
A large part of the application in the fourth round revolved around SLAs, how much time notaries would spend in the program, and then ways to keep track of it. So this will be among the last that we look at this kind of format as we think about restructuring. But right there in chat is the link to Airtable. Why this is also helpful, not just from knowing who's in the program, but where your time is going. Thank you for filling that out. It's super vital for us. We do look at it. And so thank you for filling out the Airtable in the link now.
在我们这个治理团队里面，我们非常重视这个 Notary 的 SLA 的部分非常感谢大家呢对于这个表格的一些贡献，还有提供的意见我们会非常珍惜你的意见，然后利用这些资讯来做我们的一些管理的一些方式，还有一些处理。
All right, next week is Labweek. This is still taking place in Istanbul, and I'm going to post a link here in chat. And the link that I'm posting is how you can register to attend the event. So even if you can't make it live, you can tune in virtually. We are working on all of the audio video logistics. So once we get that locked down, we'll let you know if it can be live or if we're going to have the Q&A happen virtually. So more updates to come, but the link in chat is right there. The Phil Plus talk will have a lot of updates, and that's why we have Galen on the call to kind of walk us through what to expect. But if you're curious about what the week will hold, there's one more link that I'm going to post here, and I'll put these in the Slack. This is the schedule of what's to come. So if there were other topics outside of Phil Plus, this is going to be a larger event. Lots of opportunities for you to plug into the network. The schedule is right there in chat for what to expect. So with that,
在我们的伊斯坦堡的实验室周呢，就是我们下个礼拜11月14号这个周里面呢，我们会有很多的活动。那另外呢，我们下面有 post 一些 link 这个连结。这个连结里面呢，我们就会提供在这个实验室里面的一些活动的一些方式，还有呢你参与的一些可能性还有一些活动的一些大致的情况。那所有的资讯呢有经过整理之后，都会在我们的这个link 里面会告诉大家，让大家有机会可以一起在遥远的地方也可以参与我们在实验室里面的一些工作。
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Galen, who's going to walk us through one of the major updates.
我们现在请 Galen 呢来给我们一些其他的一些这个 update
Awesome. Thank you. This GitHub issue for the allocators and meta pathway design number 984 was posted 2 weeks ago, and it covers some high level information. I'm going to talk about a few more specifics.
在我们这个聚集器跟这个原通路的这个 design 呢984号今天我们要来讨论一下一些新的一些资讯让大家有一个了解。
So one of the big things that we will be shifting away from, the current process has the one major large data set notary where almost all of the clients apply, all of the active notaries sign, And that is the primary place where people are getting data cap. And the other is the enterprise. And then there's a few other small ones like Glyph. We're going to be adding more pathways.
好，在我们现在新的这个资讯里面哈，我们列出来这个事项里面呢，我们有一些事项要准备处理呢，就是一些大的问题哈，那我们就表列在这个我们这个下面这个资讯里面。那我们在准备这个地方呢，要做一些新进一步的处理，有一些细节呢，请大家就是看一下这个资讯里面的一些描述会比较清楚。好，那我们会在这里面呢，会给大家做一些资讯的处理、整理，还有呢，将来的一些处置方式，会给大家多一些了解。
So the big thing to look at this week and prepare for going into next week are the 3 different types of allocators that we're proposing. The manual diligence, I think this is still where we will see most of the applications. These are like processes that already exist where a team would say, we are going to use some kind of mechanism to check who the client is, to check what their data is, and to check how they are distributing it. And so that manual process will somehow have a human in the loop in one of those places.
好，在我们这个等于是说分配者的这个模式里面呢，我们有一个这个原通路里面呢，一个比较大的一个修正的第一项就是我们一个手动一个确认的方式。那这个手动的确认就是用人工的方式呢来进行对于这些资料的一些验证哈，来了解说这些事情哈，有些资讯呢是谁是如何在怎么样的方式呢在处理这些资讯的一些资讯。那我们现在变成有人工的一些方式呢来进行一些验证。
The other main new section that we'll be adding, we are excited to have a couple teams building market-based allocators, and we would love to see some other groups in the community. I know Data Swap is one. This is where they will use some kind of data clearinghouse to hold the data and have bids from clients and bids from SPs, and that'll be more of an automated system. And then the third category, which we have one example of now, but we will hopefully see more, is around the automated allocators, where Glyph is the biggest example, and it uses a GitHub sign-in to then automatically give some data cap to a client.
好，另外2项比较重要的发展，就是在我们会准备利用以市场为基础的分配器呢，来进行一些操作哈，然后在这个活动里面呢，另外我们也有利用一些自动的分配器例如用Glyph 还有GitHub 的一些authentication 的一些方式来进行一些处理，所以这些就是我们在这个分配器的模式里面呢，我们新做的一些事项。
Carrie, can you click to the next slide, please? Thank you.
好，我们现在看下一页。
The application form is going to happen on GitHub, but then it is also going to link to probably another Airtable form where we'll be capturing a lot of information. If you have been a notary that applied before, you submitted an application and it had a bunch of questions, and then you submitted some additional disclosures. This is going to be similar, but more in depth.
所以我们现在这个申请表本身呢，我们会在填一些表格，这里面呢就会有更深入的一些表格的一些事项大家在submit这些资讯，在送这些资讯进来的时候呢，我们就有一些更深入的一些问题呢，大家可以把这个资讯把它填进去。
Carrie, can you go to the next slide, please?
麻烦到下一页。
So next week, we'll launch the application form. Everyone will be able to see all of the questions. We'll have Q&A. We'll explain what the questions mean. But we will also launch the rubric, which is what we use to score all of the applications. So you will see both the form with the questions and the rubric that assesses all of the answers.
那另外在我们这个评分方面呢，我们这个会有一个新的一些表格出来，那大家看到右边的这个评分事项那大家就会看到下个礼拜我们会把这个公布出来，让大家了解在这些事项里面我们的评分的标准是什么样的方式，大家可以很公开的看到。 那这样的话呢，我们在这个评分上，大家有一个透明度啊，大家就可以一个很清楚的了解我们是如何做一个评分的。
And next slide, Kare.
下一页。
Thank you. So, like I said, Labweek next week, people in person if you can make it. It'll also be live streamed and recorded if you can't, and we'll have Q&A next week with all of this. The goal will be to start collecting applications through the rest of this year, and then in Q1 we will be releasing those scores, working with the different teams that are submitting applications to be notaries, and hopefully ratifying in Q1 so that we have new people distributing DataCap to their new sort of sets of clients starting in Q1 and Q2.
在我们这个下礼拜的一些活动之中呢，我们欢迎你亲自参加，另外也可以我们会有现场的实况转播，让大家能够了解情况。那么主要的目标就是设定在明年 Q1 跟 Q2 呢，我们有些评分之后的一些资讯让大家能够了解能够来应用这个程式把这个东西呢做一些更好的一些运作谢谢大家呢能够踊跃的参与。
So before I take questions, an important thing, the program as it has currently existed kind of up to this year is going to be shifting. So the LDN process, the sort of enterprise process, the teams that work on that, these things are going to change and there will be new teams will need to submit applications. So if you are an existing notary, the way that you have been operating as being a signer on this existing large data set is going to change. And if you want to continue giving out DataCap in some capacity, every notary will be submitting an application, either as an organization or as an individual. So the thing to be preparing for starting next week is reviewing that application and submitting that as yourself or a team designing some new pathway.
我们这些从事公证人这些人，大家请特别注意从下个礼拜开始呢，我们有一些新的一些资讯，需要呢每一位公证人呢能够把自己的资讯、自己的组织以个人或组织的方式呢，都要在这个我们的资讯里面呢做一些重新的整理跟上传，让我们能够在新的一年呢，能够在开始有一个新的一个方式来做一个重新的运作所以请大家要记得来来这个做一些新的更新
Great. Any questions right now?
请大家踊跃的提议或者有什么问题提出来。
Hi. Regarding this slide and the allocation, is there an issue or an online source that we could read more in detail?
Sorry, I'll wait for translation.
Yeah, that's okay. You just go ahead.
There is one issue, 984, that talks at a very high level. That was posted a few weeks ago. Next week, there will be the application form and the rubric. We'll be posting those on GitHub and we'll have links to them in Slack.
在你提的问题，这个在984有个回应另外在下个礼拜会有一些新的资讯，这个我们要提出的 rubric 的部分呢也会给有一些新的资讯给你。
Danny?
So I was going to ask about the GitHub channel. If I remember rightly, it's a fairly low amount historically. Is there any plans to kind of increase that under this new system?
据以前所知，我们 GitHub 的 channel 里面的那个数量呢是比较少的。请问有没有什么新的做法让这个数量有增加的机会 ？Go ahead.
So that was a notary operated by a different team. So that's Glyph. So they set the amount that they gave out per allocation. I don't know right now if they will apply again and what amount they will set. If they don't apply again, the governance team will be looking for someone to pick up that work because it's really useful to have for all of the tutorial docs It may still remain 32 just as a small amount to do your first deal. But we may see other teams submit an application to say, if you use a GitHub account, we will give you, 64 or 1 terabyte as long as it is a new GitHub account and it's used in distributed deal making. But this, again, is up to external teams to fill out the application and let us know how much they would give, how they would do diligence, and what the compliance requirements would be.
这个数量的问题本身呢，就是由各个公证人本身呢，他们在各处呢有设定不同的这个值来做一些安排。所以这个值呢，在刚开始的时候设定也许在32，但是呢，如果说有需要的时候，他们也许设得更大。但是呢，如果要把它设得更大的时候，我们欢迎你呢，能够把你这个设的一个那个比较大的值的一些方式，还有你的一个监控的那个方式呢，些部分呢都要提出来，让我们能够了解。那这样的话，我们就可以依据你的需求来做一个另外的一个重新分配，尤其是对于新的GitHub 的人呢能够有一个比较多的一些动机让他能够加入，能够去给他大一点的容量那这个是在每个我们的不同的公证人本身呢有不同的需要，那就欢迎提出来，那我们再依据大家的需要来做一个比较好的分配。
I think there was a question in the chat. Could we get that translated, please?
Let me see. I'm not seeing the chat portion.
Okay.
Where's that chat? Would you be able to read that chat? I'm not able to read it.
No.
What was the question?
I'm not sure. I think the question is in Chinese. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where in the chat that I can find on the screen?
617, and you'll see it at the very bottom. There's a toolbar with the words mute, stop, security, participants. Once you see that, you'll see chat.
Okay.
Here we go. Danny.
Okay,
does this proposal mean to add another channel to obtain data cap in addition to existing LDN? The existing LDN channel will be deprecated. There will be a different open dataset pathway and an enterprise pathway, I expect, because I am working with teams to submit those applications. And we may see another team submit an application for their own version of the LDN pathway. But as of right now, the current LDN multisig with 80 signers, once we ratify these new notaries, that pathway will be sunset. It will end.
OK， 所以现在的 LDN 的部分呢，在我们做一些新的安排之后呢，我们旧的 LDN 就没有了，那我们就会再有新的方式呢，让大家能够再有一些新的 LDN 的申請
If there are no more questions right now, then hopefully we'll see people next week. There will be a lot more information and time for more questions next week. This will be an ongoing process, so it won't be, decisions will not happen at the next Notary Governance call. We'll be sort of taking applications, reviewing those applications, working with people. So there will still be lots of announcements and back and forth.
如果大家今天没有什么特别新的问题的话，只是跟大家讲一下，从下礼拜开始呢，我们会有一些更详细的一些活动的一些资讯那还有很多的一些资讯要分享给大家那所以大家有更多的资讯呢可以进行讨论那所以大家很期望下个礼拜大家能够开始比较忙碌的一些资讯给大家做一些了解。
Go ahead, Kenneth.
Thank you. So after today, I will actually summarize this meeting with my team. If there's any question on this portion, is it okay if we text you on Slack, Mr. Gallen?
Yeah, Slack is one way. And then, like I said, next week, there will be more announcements more posts in GitHub, and people can do questions there as well. Yes, for now.
现在如果有任何的问题的话呢，如果没有现在问出来也没关系，我们欢迎你用 Slack 来跟我们联络。那当然下个礼拜之后我们会有更多的一个宣布那大家也可以期望。那在这个持续中间呢，大家有任何问题欢迎用 Slack 直接联系。
Okay, thanks everyone. I'm going to drop. K-Ray, I'll kick it back to you.
Cheers, Galen. Thank you. All right, shifting gears, everybody. There are two proposals. I put them in chat. I think this is a key part of the network that you should well be aware of, is looking at the proposals that come through on GitHub. So just as a quick drop in the links, I'm going to share that screen. What's nice is this is where all the issues are discussed. A lot of the ideas are fleshed out. So here in the issues, you can see like threshold compliance, the allocator. So those of you that asked in chat, highly recommend you read these, and I'll try to share them as much as possible. So with that,
在这个里面呢，刚才有share掉2个 link， 那个里面呢有一些案子那欢迎大家呢回去看一下这个第1跟第2个那个案子再请麻烦进来这个地方点进去来看看这里面的资讯。
Update on the meta pathways. We've talked about this on the past 2 calls. It's been open for a few weeks. And essentially what Galen was speaking to earlier, this is the culmination of where it started. If you look at how DataCap is received, it goes out in automation, or it goes out with like the LDN or eFil Plus programs. How can that be rethought to remove friction and make it much easier to get that quality data on? That's what this project is looking at. So if you haven't looked at the issue, it's posted there in chat, 984. And what this should do is essentially move the notaries into an allocator model where they're controlling the data cap and they're deciding where it goes based off bookkeeping and rules. So this is going to be the 2.5-hour session that takes place next week, all about that allocator model of allocating data.
所以在下个礼拜这个2个半小时一个话题呢，都是在讲这个原通路的这个的设计尤其是我们遇到的一些瓶颈的一些问题呢在这个讨论里面呢，我们会把这个从这个公证人的部分呢把它转移到分配人的一个部分来做一些其他的一些转变。那大家在这个2个半小时的一个讨论里面呢，就会有更进一步的一些资讯呢，有关于这个原通路的这个设计的一个讨论话题。
So an update on how that process can work, the AC bot. What Phil has proposed and published here in this showing, it's issue 986. I'll make sure this is in chat. It's what do those thresholds look like for everything from data cap removal to how the bot is functioning as it runs through this elevated program. So if how an automated bot is of interest to you, if you have feedback on ways that this should be implemented or designed, or what thresholds it should be considering, please take a look at this issue. We'd like your feedback as this gets developed and iterated.
在我们的右手边这边有一个表格呢，要把我们这个聚合和规性法旨这个提案，就是 AC Buff 的部分呢有做了一些新的一些提案。那欢迎大家呢对这个细节呢麻烦进去看一下这整体的一些规划的方式那大家如果对这个规划的方式有任何的提议或者是一些意见呢我们麻烦大家赶快提出来。那这样的话我们才能够对这些一定的一些值能够做一些讨论或做一些这个执行请大家在这里面呢尽量请提出我们的评论或者是建议案让我们了解你的意见。谢谢。
So before I open it up with questions, if I had to leave you with one thing to be aware of, it would be this, that the allocator will be formally like flushed out, discussed, and reviewed at Labweek next week. We don't know if the event will be possible to broadcast live. Once we do, we'll update you. If it's not live, we will get those YouTube videos up in the coming days right after the event. But again, we will update you. The Allocator event will be posted at Labweek. The registration is in chat. You can attend live. If we can make the videos live, we will do so as well.
那在这边，我希望大家留给大家一个最重要的一个资讯，就是说我们这个下个礼拜这个部分呢，在这个分配人的部分我们这个 link 里面呢会给大家能够说如何去参与的一些参与方式。那麻烦大家就是要注意到这个参与的部分，也欢迎大家能够参与对这个 Allocator 的部分就是我们分配人的部分有一些新的一些资讯给大家能够来参考，能够来运用。
With that, that was all the new information coming from us on the governance side. Turn the floor over. New issues, thoughts, the floor is yours.
在我们的治理会议，大概今天就是把这些比较高层的一些资讯呢，大家先做一些大概的讨论大家是不是还有什么什么意见或问题可以提出来
Store Swift, yes.
Okay, hello. Because I'm a little late for this meeting, so I just missed the allocator model part. I'm very confused. So what's the difference between the allocator and the notary? So I just heard the Galen said the LDN will sunset in the future. So that means in the future there will be no notaries. So I don't know what's the difference between the allocator and notaries. So why should we apply for being a allocator?
刚才我们所讨论这些呢，对于这个 notary 跟 allocate 这个部分公证人跟分配人这个部分，听起来好像是我们的公证人本身呢要取消掉，要变成只有剩分配人。对这个部分我不是很清楚所以也请麻烦再跟我们多解释一点。Are you getting the question, Kevin?
Yeah, I'll take care of
that.
Thank you.
All right.
Great question. So maybe we start by talking about what is the role of a notary and what is the role of an allocator, and then that might allocate a little bit of the change. So a notary, in their purpose, is a reviewer, somebody who knows the process, can look it over, and make an informed decision on if this was an application that meets the qualifications. An allocator is very similar, but an allocator could come not just from an individual or an organization, but from a data pathway, like the glyph that's a data allocator, which means data allocators in the next round, just like in the fourth, will apply, and they will be reviewed and scored based off what they can contribute to the network, what their history is, and what they plan to do. And with that, they will receive an allocation of data cap. And then that allocator can distribute that data cap according to their bookkeeping plans and all of their application guidelines, whatever aligns with the program as it stands. The intent of that is that it can speak in and go.
我们这个 notary 跟这个 allocator 这两个最大的一个区别就是说 allocator 可以去查验来看这些东西然后来做一些某些决定。但是呢 notary 的那个功能呢，这某些功能，但是我们的 allocator 呢就会有一些更强化的一些功能，包括从个人角度，从一些组织的角度然后能够来看看这些资讯，然后呢来检查这些过去的以往的一些整个的流程还有呢能够把一些能够收到一些 data cap 依据这些东西呢来做一些分配资源的一些分配做调整。所以在权限上呢，我们的这个 allocator 本身呢就会比 notary 呢会大所以呢它有包含 notary 的一些功能，但是呢有更增加的一些功能。
Yes, Danny, please.
I was just gonna add on to that, because the way that I'm understanding the difference is that with notaries, all notaries had to do the same thing, which was to sit on GitHub, read the issues, and the process was the same for every notary. In this, applicants come with their own proposed process. So again, this is just how I understand it. When, for instance, there are services like Banyan Computer and Web3 storage, and these their process would be very different from going on GitHub issues and sort of making a decision there. They as you said, they get the allocation of data cap and they distribute it according to the process and the proposal that they submit in this new application.
在我们的新的运用里面呢，我们所知道的就是 Notary 哈，这是依我所见 ，Notary 本身呢，它是每一个 Notary 都做的事情都是一样的。但是我们在这个新的 Allocator 的一个功能上呢，我们就会变成说是每一个Allocator 本身，它从不同的背景，在不同的运用上，它可能有一些不同的一些需求，还有一些要求。那就会依据它不同的要求来做一些处置，所以在这个里面就会等于是说比较 flexible 哈，比较能够说在事情的运用上呢会比较自由度高一些，而且能够符合各自的一些不同的需求。
So I see two questions in chat. I'll read them out loud just to make sure they get flagged. And just before I do, I will preference a lot of these specific questions are what's going to be announced next week. So anything that's kind of specific, I think the two that I'm going to hit off are kind of around that. But a lot of these details are going to be announced in the Labweek. So let's see. First question was, does the new LDN mean clients should answer different questions? I think this is going to vary as we see this program evolve. As Danny mentioned earlier, that one of the benefits of this allocator model is that the allocators define what their diligent plan is. So this means that, yes, there may be different applications based off different allocators. And I think that's a good topic to kind of look at and explore. And I think that's going to be a big part of what comes up in Labweek.
在我们现在所问的2个问题里面呢，这些比较细节性的问题，在下个礼拜呢，我们都会有对这些问题呢一些更详细的一些说明。那关于这个问题呢，对于这个新的 LDN 的部分呢，是每一个人呢，他是不是有不同的一些 LDN？ 那的确在这个每一个人呢，他有一些不同的一些需求那是会有一些不同的一些处理方式。那所以在下个礼拜的资讯里面，我们会给大家更详细的说明这些不同的方式是一个怎么样的运作。
Good question in chat. Will we have a translator for the event next week? That's a great question, and I think we're still running it down. Just to be honest with you, the event is in Istanbul. So given the political climates with everything taking place, a lot of this has been changes, lots of changes, all happening rapidly. So I apologize. We've been looking for two things: live broadcast, live translator. But obviously, given the outside scope of this international event, I can't guarantee it, but I can tell you that this is what we're working for. If we don't get someone live, then of course, whatever we have as far as a recording broadcast will come with that translation.
有问题问到说下个礼拜的那个活动本身有没有一个现场的一些翻译可以在那边那跟大家报告一下对于我们下个礼拜的活动本身为2大要项，第一项就是能够在现场直播，第二个呢的确就是要找一下看看有没有一些现场的一些翻译目前这是我们在努力的一些事项还没有一个答案可以给大家报告。
One of the questions in chat, this is kind of broad, so I hope I hit this. It comes down to, hey, what's going to be the part of the allocator? Are they going to essentially play the role of Sunny is coming? So if you're on the call and you don't know who Sunny is coming reviews applications. And one of a core part of her job is she helps move them along. So if there's standard questions that need to be asked, she asks them. If there's irregularities that can be cleared up, she tries to do that. She serves as a moving mechanism with these applications on the LDN side. It's a good question as far as what is the need and what is the moving application. And I think that's what the two proposals before this were trying to address, especially things like the AC bot, where you have this automated compliance tool that looks at different thresholds the same way Sunny, the human, would, and tries to move those applications forward. So I can't say if this new allocator model will require a human to operate in the most effective, efficient way, or if we've reached some parity where with automation, tooling, and better documentation, it reaches a point where just one bot is able to support it.
我们对于这个新的这个 Allocator 的部分呢，是不是 Sunny is coming 呢能够再继续在运作？那目前我们知道 Sunny is coming 这个部分呢，能够协助我们在常态性的运作上呢，能够有一些协助那至于在新的 Allocator 呢，会不会需要很多人工的一些干预或者是有 Sunny is coming 的部分呢一起或者是一个并行的这两者也许是一个 bi-modal 的一个方式，两个同时并行那所以这个呢可能还是有待到时候再看看一个情况，但是这是可能性是有的So the translating on the question here is that there has been a lot of robot, issue with the robots. Do we know when can we fix these issues?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking about that. This came up just before the first call. Simon, who's running that bot, is aware of it. We flagged it with our developers that are working on that. The time zone that they operate means that they're coming online right now. So that means that for them to diagnose it, get an understanding, we're probably looking at an update I would say probably in that 24-hour window, just to at least tell you what's going on and when we have an estimation of next steps. I'll follow up.
谢谢你提出的这个有关机器人的问题呢 ，Simon 呢在他的时区里面呢，现在正在积极的在做一些修复那应该在这24小时之内呢，会给我们一些新的一些报告所以到时候再分享给大家。Sorry, go ahead.
No, you picked the perfect time.
Well, can I ask one more question? That's the statement there.
Please.
请问。I think she's typing.
Wow. Is there still an IT outsource team help with the bot fixing? Yes, that's exactly what's going on. The Filecoin network obviously is a very broad ecosystem. Some tools touch others, some are isolated, and developers, like Fabri and Outer Core, are what drives it forward. And so we're lucky to have them. We're grateful for their help. And we'll update you on what the status is as soon as we get an update from them.
我们是不是有收到这个 IT 的一些额外的一些团队呢在帮忙的确是对于这个 bot 这个机器人的一个修理来说呢，像这个 Fabri 他们呢有在参与我们这些修复的工作，我们非常感谢我们在这个大的这个等位社区里面呢我们有这些团队的人能够互相能够帮忙我们。So the question is that waiting for the bot to be fixed may require a long time, and then so in order not to deter or create any disturbances to the operation, from the official point of view, are you able to do a manual fix of the robot?
So the way that I understand the issue as it stands, and I'll make sure that Simon posts an update because he's the one that's going to know this. So just from my very limited understanding was that the issue was isolated, that it was working overall, and there was a very specific use case of a very selected small group of individuals that were impacted. I'm going to follow up with Simon because what I want to verify and what I'll run down is that if that has expanded outside of this small limited number of individuals, then yes, we will elevate this urgent need to a critical need, and I will update you once I know more.
这个问题非常好那目前我据我所知，这个 Simon 是已经在处理这个问题。 那在我了解的范围里面呢，目前所了解的这个影响呢，它是比较小，比较有限度的哈，比较少部分的人有受到一些影响，所以呢，希望这个可以处理好。但是如果在了解这个事态有扩大的趋势的话呢，那我们当然会把更多的资源投进去呢，来做一个更好的、更快的一个回应谢谢你的问题。Are you able to, do you want to respond to the question, the English question first, before we come to the Chinese answer, the question?
Yeah. How would this AC bot indirectly or directly improve the RBP? I think what we're looking at now with that is these are like what the topics of Labweek are really going to address. So what I'll do is rather than kind of give you an overview summary of that, we can make sure that I grab these chat calls and I'll build that into the general agenda for Labweek. And the reason for that is I'll have the people that are actually designing that speak to your answer and then give it a much more detailed response.
Yeah， 所以您刚才提的这个问题本身呢，我们在下个礼拜的部分会再给你们这些问题呢有一些比较详尽的一个回应所以麻烦你有耐心等到下个礼拜我们有一些整理之后给更多的一些回应。So the Chinese version is that when the allocator mechanism is implemented, where the current DC continue to operate or to approve, and so the data from the sun is coming 2 or 3 weeks ago that did not respond. We asked the question, but apparently there's no reply. So I think that one of the statements have been made for the question. Do we have an answer for that?
Do me this. After this call is over or right now, send me a Slack and link me that. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to forward it on. I don't know what the status is of that, but if you send me that link right now, I will forward that on and get you updated.
关于这个问题如果可以的话，麻烦你把那个 link 用 Slack 寄给我。那我再往下再去追一下，看看这个情况的处理是什么样子。因为目前我对这个事情不是有很确切的了解。So the question is that when will the concrete plan for V5?
Next week. That's all getting rolled out next week.
Okay, so there is a response by Mr. Wang that please be patient to wait until next week. So he responded to that. For example, like last year, it was December 1st. So the fastest, the earliest possible day could be sometime in December. So that's basically what the Chinese words and also response means.
Store Swift, I see your hand. The floor is yours.
Yes, I noticed in the slides and there is a allocator application. So I'm just wondering, is there a link about the GitHub application form, and when will the application form will be open to the public?
Yeah, Store Swift. Sorry.
他问的问题是说在这个Allocator 这个 application 本身的申请表有没有一个 link 让这些申请表这些资讯能够有个 link 能够去看得到。Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think you joined the call late. So to summarize very briefly what Galen covered is that the allocator application will be discussed at Labweek next week. So what you're seeing is just a screenshot of 2 sample questions just for a talking point on this slide, but the details of the allocator application and the discussion will take place next week.
所以 Galen 刚刚呢，很抱歉你因为没有听到 Galen 所讲的他这个列出来的2个问题，就是他刚刚在讲的时候提出来的一些一个样本的问题那在下个礼拜呢，我们就会把这个他的这个 application 呢，把它讲出来会有一些更详细的资讯，所以下个礼拜才会有这个资料给你。
Okay, thanks.
So the last statement over here said I have provided 60 pip for File Plus as the kind of the storage provider. My LDN, because of the robot or the issue, robot issue, so my LDN has been suspended. Kevin, can you help me? How do I restore my LDN so they can function normally?
Send me a Slack message during this call.
Okay.
This call, I don't know how to fix it, but I know people who do. Send me a Slack message. I'll help get it in the right hands.
Okay. So before I respond to translate yours, he also mentioned that the issue for the current robot is that we have been on a daily basis be reduced to 500 tip. The DC been reduced to that constraint. So 那个 Kevin 刚才讲是说麻烦你把这个问题呢把它整理一下用 Slack 送那个资讯直接送给 Kevin。这样的话呢，他会比较能够有一些细目，能够记得帮你做回应。
That feels like a really good ending. Thank you all so much for this call. If there's anything that comes up, feel free to message me. Those of you that had the issues with the bot, please send me that Slack. I'll be happy to look into that and help forward it on. If you found this call helpful, I'm going to be asking for feedback in Slack. Please let me know. I'm going to be asking specifically, was having a translator of value? Your input goes a long way on making that decision. So please let us know when we ask. Thank you.
那谢谢今天大家热烈的讨论，也提出非常宝贵的一些意见有一些比较特别的一些关于机器人这些问题麻烦把这些问题整理一下，用 Slack 直接寄给我。那另外呢，对于我们今天这个整个程序整个资讯还有翻译这些资讯希望有所帮助。那也希望你提供一些你的一些了解跟意见，让我们以后呢在处理这些事情上有更进一步的一些安排，能够做一些修正让我们这个会议呢能够开得更有效率。谢谢大家。This one says, thank you for the translator. Thank you, everyone. 谢谢大家的参与。Have a great day, everyone.